The 1 o'clock Week 1 games have been played as I record this, and there is a lot to take away from each and every game. The Texans were made fun of all offseason and came out with a huge win. The Bengals had a huge overtime win over the Vikings, and the Lions nearly completed the comeback in the first game of the Dan Campbell era. We are going to be discussing all of the 1 o'clock games, so without further ado, let's dive right in. We begin today's video with the Eagles and Falcons game, and there is a lot to discuss here. First, the concern with Atlanta is real. The hiring of head coach Arthur Smith was viewed as maybe a year early from other front offices, but I do want to say if it's your guy, then by all means, go get him. The Rams certainly proved that with Sean McVay a few years ago, it has obviously paid huge dividends. However, the situations were drastically different as Sean McVay had a young quarterback in Jared Goff and an offensive player of the year running back in Todd Gurley, whereas the Falcons simply do not. I was highly disappointed with the Falcons putting up just 6 points in their opener as Matt Ryan averaged less than 5 yards per attempt, and there is nothing but disappointment in Atlanta right now. Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley were targeted appropriately as you want each of these guys getting 8+ targets per game like they did in Week 1. There just needs to be better execution from the Falcons offensive line. This team is in a very weird state due to their young head coach and old quarterback, but a decision will be made eventually regarding this. Obviously, now is not the time for that given it is an emotional time after a huge Week 1 loss, but this is something to keep an eye on moving forward. And as for the Eagles, head coach Nick Sirianni could not have had a better debut, and Jalen Hurts looks like he is 100% the guy. Now, I'm not saying he is at this moment in time because, again, it would be very reactionary after a huge Week 1 win, but if I were an Eagles fan right now, I could not blame them at all for sipping some Kool-Aid after this dominant Week 1 win. Now we go to Houston, where credit to them for beating the Jags in a dominant fashion. They were clowned all offseason and absolutely took it to the Jags and Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence threw 3 interceptions while Tyrod Taylor and the Jags did not have a turnover all day, and when you score 35+ points and do not turn the ball over, the record for those teams is very good, and the only team to my knowledge to ever lose a game like that was the Falcons in 2020 when they lost to the Cowboys with the infamous onside kick. But not enough credit can be given to the Texans for beating the Jags, as the Texans were a team all offseason that was clowned in ways we had not seen before, so major credit to them and first-year head coach David Culley for beating the Jags in Week 1. Now we go to Indy to discuss the Seahawks and Russell Wilson. The term "let Russ cook" was in full effect on Sunday as he had 4 passing touchdowns, including a Russell Wilson signature moonball to Tyler Lockett for a 69-yard touchdown. Lockett scored twice, Metcalf scored once, and Chris Carson rushed for nearly 100 yards on the ground. There is a lot to look forward to in Seattle when they simply let Russ cook and play good defense. And you could most certainly argue they looked the best out of NFC team, maybe aside from the Saints, all day. Indy averaged less than 4 yards per carry despite running the ball 30 times, and it was certainly not a great start to his sophomore campaign for Jonathan Taylor. Now, the silver lining for this is the Colts, especially the Colts, have already had a lot of injuries, and it should only get better moving forward. Quarterback Carson Wentz wasn't awful, but he wasn't a tremendous franchise quarterback either. There's ultimately a lot to look forward to for both teams, and unfortunately for Indy Sunday, they ran into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, who, and as we know, Russell has not had an MVP candidate vote yet in his career, and he may still be, and I wouldn't doubt it, be taking it personally, and we will see if that narrative changes at the end of the 2021 season. From one NFC West winning team to another we go to what could very much be described as the shock of the day, the Arizona Cardinals beating the Tennessee Titans by 4 scores and 25 total points. Now, I think we all expected Kyler Murray to take a big step forward given that it was year number 3, and we saw the considerable leap that he had from 2019 to 2020, but I don't think anybody saw this type of leap moving forward. He had over 300 total yards, 5 total touchdowns as he had 4 through the air, including 2 each to DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk, and had 1 on the ground, and all in all had a huge day and was obviously a big part in the Cardinals' win. Now, for the Cardinals' defense to hold the Tennessee Titans to 13 points, given how much hype they had over the offseason between asking the question, how are you going to stop Ryan Tannehill, Derek Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones is absolutely nothing short of spectacular, and Chandler Jones cannot be shouted out enough for the 5-sack day that he had, and Chandler Jones was so dominant that left tackle Taylor Lewan even tweeted, "I got my rear end kicked, thank you," and then tagged Chandler Jones for making me better and exposing my weaknesses. So all in all, there cannot be enough positive things said about the Arizona Cardinals, and as for the Tennessee Titans, there is still a lot to look forward to. This game is not 100% their season, and they are done. They still have a lot of great offensive weapons, but I do think we all realize at times the hype is certainly not all worth it, and a 25-point loss is a rough way to start the season, but the Tennessee Titans have a lot of good players on their team, and they can still certainly make the playoffs and make noise moving forward. Now we head to New York and Carolina's game, and there was a lot of concerning things regarding Zach Wilson in the first half. As simply put, he was not good under pressure, and obviously one of the sacks that the Panthers had, they simply did not block Brian Burns, and that is generally not a recipe for success, as Brian Burns will be a Pro Bowler and probably a multiple-time Pro Bowler in his NFL career. But at least if we're going to nitpick Zach Wilson, then we're going to acknowledge other things and where his teammates could have been better. As simply put, averaging 2.6 yards per carry is not good for Zach Wilson, or nor is it good for Patrick Mahomes. So the Jets running backs ultimately have to play better moving forward, but Zach Wilson has to also play better under the blitz, and credit to Zach Wilson for leading a 10-play, 98-yard drive in 2.5 minutes near the end of the fourth quarter, as ultimately it was too little too late for the Jets, but there were some positives and there were also some negatives for Zach Wilson in his first career start. As for the Panthers on Sunday, I do think this is going to be generally what you see for them for most of the season. They are going to beat the teams they should most of the time, and their defense will certainly cause teams problems. We saw on Sunday them do that to Zach Wilson, but I do think it is fair to say that the Panthers will be limited by their quarterback. This is going to be a tough team to beat week in and week out, because I do expect their young defenses to make some serious strides in 2021, and I do think we saw that on Sunday. Now we go to the Motor City to discuss the 49ers and Lions, and obviously the 49ers won. We all expected that going in. However, I do want to discuss the Lions more so than the 49ers because, again, the 49ers did what they were expected to do, which was win. This Lions team was down 41-17 with 2 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. This team then scored 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes, and I think that is more of a positive than anything else I could say about the Detroit Lions that we thought heading into the game. This is what we're going to expect in the Dan Campbell era, is them to fight down to the last minute for absolutely everything. And I do think when Dan Campbell said the infamous "we're going to bite kneecaps" quote, this is exactly what he meant, and I think it showed, and more than showed really, in their first game. The Lions football roster in 2021 is certainly not the most talented in the NFL, and Lions fans, you guys know that. You guys should at least know that you guys are not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but it is big moral W's like this that we saw on Sunday that's going to mean a lot moving forward, and I absolutely loved what I saw from the Lions on Sunday, specifically in the final 2 minutes. Now we move on to the Chargers and Washington football team, and if there is one takeaway, Justin Herbert is a superstar. Justin Herbert on third down today was 13 of 16 for 160 yards, had 11 first downs and a touchdown, and his stats were not the greatest. However, his receivers dropped 7 balls, including 2 for touchdowns, and another one hit a guy on the helmet and 1 in the road, and of course, the West Coast teams beating the infamous East Coast teams in what we all know and hear all the time is the time zone. Justin Herbert is a star, and that is the biggest takeaway from Week 1 regarding the Los Angeles Chargers. And for the Washington football team, we hope and we pray that Ryan Fitzpatrick is okay, but based off of the reports that I have on Sunday night as I record this, it does not look promising, but we wish him the best and the football team the best moving forward. Now we go to Western New York to discuss the Steelers and Bills, and I do think there is one major thing we have to give here, and it is credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were down 10-0 at halftime after producing just 54 yards of total offense in the first half, and Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Tomlin, and everybody could have said, you know what, we're playing the Buffalo Bills, a team that went to the AFC Championship game last year, a team that has Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, and Devin Devin Singletary on the offensive side of the ball and everyone on defense, and they could have very easily just packed it in, and as we know, they did not, and had a 23-point second half and even worked that up to a 10-point lead in the second half at a point in time. So credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers for playing hard-nosed football and for not giving up when they very easily could have. Now, there are some negative things for the Steelers. As we said, they had just 54 total yards of offense in the first half, and if this team wants to compete with the best of the AFC, meaning the Kansas City Chiefs, that is something that cannot happen. And by the way, I am saying compete with the best of the AFC because they did just go into Buffalo and win on the road, despite hearing since May, since the schedule was released, that the Bills are going to start 1-0 and to chalk it up now. For Buffalo, this by no means is the end of the year. The Pats and the Dolphins just played today, so obviously another team in the division is starting out 0-1, and of course the Jets are 0-1, they are not a huge threat to win the AFC East in 2021. A huge win for the Steelers and for the Bills. This is not an ideal start to the year, but it could be far, far worse. Now we go to Cincinnati to discuss the Minnesota Vikings and the Cincinnati Bengals, and one thing that the Minnesota Vikings cannot do moving forward if they want to seriously compete is commit as many penalties as they did. In the first drive alone, there were 5 or 6 penalties in the first 8 or 9 plays, and the first quarter was very slow as the Minnesota Vikings offense committed several penalties, and within that, made the game slow way down due to the constant stoppage. However, it did improve in the second half, and at times it seemed like a miracle that the Vikings were even in the game, but I do want to credit the Cincinnati Bengals, and especially Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, for being a very formidable duo for the future. If this team gets 7 wins, it wouldn't surprise me because ultimately the Bengals defense, it's not great, but it's certainly not terrible either, and I thought the Vikings were going to expose the Bengals defense in several areas, which they did not. Larry Ogunjobi played a great game, and so did Jesse Bates, and the Cincinnati Bengals, if they get 7 or 11 wins, it would not surprise me either way. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are certainly here to stay and are going to be a very formidable duo for the near future and for the long-term future as well. Anyways, with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time that I ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world. And until next time, please let me know what you think in the comments. Drop a video suggestion if you have one, and until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.